Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. This is Ramnath here from Mellanox. I am the marketing manager for Big Data, AI, and Web2O. And I let Jeff introduce himself. Jeff?
Hi, this is Jeffrey Stook with Scale Logic. I am the Director of Digital Video Solutions, and glad to be a part of this with Mellanox.
Thank you, Jeff. So just quick words about Mellanox for folks who don't know about us. We are a networking company. We started off about 19 years ago, and last year we hit about $900 million revenue. We're a public company. And about 10 years ago, we expanded into the Ethernet base. And today, if you look at it, pretty much in the enterprise market, we have about 10 gig, we have about 85 to 90% of the market share. So with that, I wanted to go on to a presentation which is building post-production storage to your advantage. Again, this is Ramnath, and I'll be presenting with Jeff jointly. So we know that Hollywood, when it comes to Hollywood, they have always been pushing the boundaries of technology to entice their viewers. So obviously, movies cost a lot of dollars, but what not a lot of people know is that they also cost a lot of storage. For example, in 2009, when Avatar movie came out, James Cameron actually said the total storage space that they needed for storing video was a little more than 1 terabyte. 5 years later, when Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2 came, just for post-production storage, they needed about 2.4 terabytes of storage. And just this year, when Guardians of the Galaxy 2 came out, which is the first 8K movie, just with a single 8K raw video captured from a single 8K camera was 500 terabytes. And this does not even include any rendering or any post-production work. So, when I ask this question, how long until we have exabyte video? It takes about 16K video resolution with 300 frames per second. We're talking about 415 terabytes of data per hour. And the full stereoscopic capture, that doubles the requirement to about 830 terabytes. So, just the raw viewpoint, with 4K, with 415K cameras, that would be about 1.6 terabytes. So with this extrapolation, in less than 10 years, we'll have a pro video project that will generate about exabyte of data. So if you look at the technology trends that are really driving the storage costs in such a high production video content, the 5 things over here: image resolution, HDR, wider color coming, visual depth, and higher frame rate. I'm not going to go into these because you folks already know. But from the storage perspective, the impact that it has is, for example, if you take a 4K digital content, 1 hour of data that gets generated is about 6.7 terabytes of data. And that's assuming 60 frames per second. You're not even talking about slow motion like 100 frames or 120 frames. So the key takeaway is that the richer is your image, the richer is your content, the more storage and the more bandwidth you need. And in the upcoming slides, this is exactly what we're going to focus on. Why, with more storage, you actually need more bandwidth. But before I go there, I wanted to quickly show the media and entertainment landscape. This was the report from Colin Associate last year at Flash Memory Summit. If you look at the pie chart on the left side, it shows the amount of raw video content that is captured to generate 1 hour of final content. And about close to half the times, 2 to 5 hours of video content are actually generated to come up with 1 hour of final content. And a little over 1/4 of time, a quarter of time, 6 to 10 hours of video content is generated. And on the right side, if you look at the storage media types that's being used, is more than half the time it's flash-based storage. This, of course, includes the cameras on the front end, so where it is predominantly only flash-based storage. From the network perspective, however, if you see, there are three main things in the content workflow. The broadcast and content distribution network and production storage network in between. Broadcast network have been moving from SDI to IP-based in the last few years to support higher resolution like 4K and 8K. Content distribution has always been IP-based because Ethernet is the only network that drives internet. But the post-production storage alone, all these while, has been using fiber channel. So it's really disruptive when you have two networks. You have to translate your data across the content workflow to move from one network to another and back to the initial network. And this is really where Mellanox comes into picture, because our Ethernet can not just mitigate the need for your fiber channel or SDI-based interface, whether it's post-production or broadcast, but we can do that in a cost-effective manner. Specifically for CapEx, our Ethernet is significantly lower than fiber channel or SDI, and that's less than $500 per port, a 25 gig. That means that includes a port of adapter plus switch plus cable. And compare that with fiber channel, that's about $2,000. And the worst part is that you actually get lower bandwidth than the 25 gig Ethernet that we can provide. Another thing is that you don't even have to rip off your existing fiber optics at all. You could pretty much reuse your existing cable infrastructure and just change the end-to-end transceiver. And we are one of the very few companies in the industry who actually have the products for end-to-end adapters, switches, and cable. From optics perspective, we have been able to keep up with demands of Scale Logic. As and when they grow their storage, you don't need to have multiple adapters, fiber channel adapters. A single 100 gig Ethernet adapter just solves the problem. And since you have less network in the part, there are less chances for you to have failures. And finally, we actually have multiple tools that enables you to deploy, that enables your users, your customers to deploy deploy the network infrastructure in a seamless way, and that's all for free. All these software, it's pretty much free, and some of them are actually open source. So to sum it up, we actually have a cost-effective network for storage, data, and video. So just sort of at a higher level, just summary of the last couple of slides. From the digital entertainment content workflow perspective, we talked about the flash-based storage that's used in the film cameras. The key takeaway over here is that your storage really becomes heart of this entire content workflow, because you need a faster storage to ingest the data from the flash-based front-end cameras or the source or the capturing devices. And you also need faster scale-out storage to do highly transactional workloads like nonlinear editing or compositing or color correction. And finally, because you have multiple output formats, you have to transcode each of them in different scheme, and that transcoded content is also stored in the same shared scale-out storage. So your storage needs to be really robust to handle the entire content workflow. But another thing over here is how they are connected, and this is really where your high-performance network plays into effect. Because in order to move these content across, you actually need a high-speed network. And this is exactly where Mellanox and Scale Logic is teaming up. With that, I let Jeff talk about this Genesis platform that's the heart of this post-production content workflow, and talk a little bit about how Mellanox and Scale Logic has been working on this interesting area.
Thank you, Ramnath. If you could go to the next slide. The first thing that I think is, of most importance is that at our headquarters in Bloomington, we maintain an interoperability lab that allows us to do this testing with industry applications, do proof of concept testing, certifications and qualifications with third parties. This is what has allowed us to do the extensive testing with Mellanox as a partner with, with applications like Resolve, Premiere, Flame, Final Cut, Media Composer, so that we can actually see the benefits that we're getting from our Scale-Out NAS, our SANs, using the Mellanox product. At any given time in our lab, we've got workflows, ranging from our Scale-Out NAS product, our shared storage, to backup and archive. So that gives us a great opportunity to be able to test across multiple tiers with the Mellanox switching. If you can go to the next slide, please. Very quickly, this is one example of our Genesis Unlimited product in a multi-tier environment, where we can actually do 4K editing seamlessly. We would use our Genesis Hybrid, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But we see here that we have a primary storage, which would be where you're editing from. We have a nearline storage with our Genesis NX, and then using our archive IAP server, we have our ICAP, our third tier archive. If you can go to the next slide, please. In this example, we're showing our high availability along with our Scale-Out NAS gateway. So we've got multiple, chassis of spinning disks here, along with a complete high availability failover system with our Genesis Hyper NDC. And you can also see that we've got multiple nodes of our Scale-Out gateway. We can actually do up to 64 nodes of our Scale-Out gateway, which allows our, the LAN clients to be able to talk to the storage the same as the direct connected iSCSI clients or, fiber type clients. If you can go to the next slide, please. One of the big hot topics that we're finding right now in the industry, there's a lot of folks out there that are using AVID workflows, but they're limited in the amount of AVID storage, ISIS or Nexus storage, and they need the ability to park those workspaces or those projects someplace else, for a short period of time, or till they can bring those back in till they're ready to edit. This slide is an example of exactly how we do that, where and we've got our NX down here, which could be a third tier. We have our Genesis ZX cluster that allows very fast parking of projects and or workspaces. And we even show an example of how we could have a completely second instance of all of that data for disaster recovery. So with that, I will now turn it back over to Ramnan, and thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. So in the last few slides, Jeff talked about the Genesis platform and how Mellanox works with Scale Logic to enable the post-production workflow. So one of the things to note over here, there are two things over here. That the Genesis Unlimited box, they actually use our ConnectX 4 series adapters. And when we designed our Ethernet adapters, there are two things for us. Number one is that we want to enable companies like Scale Logic push the limits of storage boundaries, and network really plays a crucial part. So this is the main reason why Mellanox has always been first in the industry to come up with the 25 gig, 40 gig, 50 gig, or 100 gig. In fact, just earlier this year, we announced a 200 gig adapter. So we've always been first in the industry to push the limits of the network to keep up with the limits of storage. And not just that, we have actually done some really good work with Scale Logic, for example, on HyperFS, supporting the file system. And also, you can run any storage protocols, whether it is block-based iSCSI or file-based SMB and NFS. And third, the newest, the next generation NVMe or fabrics that's powering the hyperscale and cloud. All of these folks, the most popular choice of the adapter is our network. And as an extra added thing, what we try to do is offload some of the storage relevant intensive tasks to adapters. So today we can offload the data integrity checks like T10diff or array shift coding. So you can focus your CPU to run the application and not the I/O processing. And I talked about Scale Logic pushing, and companies like Scale Logic pushing the limits of storage, and that's affecting network. And this is a slide that actually summarizes that. In short, faster storage needs faster networks. And to explain this, if you just take 3 NVMe flash drives from just pure raw bandwidth standpoint, they can actually drive a single 100 gig Ethernet link. And this is where using our network adapter, switch, and cable really helps Scale Logic push the limits of the application. Now moving on to Spectrum. Spectrum is our Ethernet switch, and one of the things that we did with our switch is, unlike our competitors, we actually designed our own silicon, keeping the newer generations of workload like media entertainment, broadcast workload, and the storage workloads. So we designed our own silicon. And the advantage of that is that we can deliver the industry's best performance, not just pure raw bandwidth of 100 gigabit Ethernet on per port, but also latency and jitter, which is very, very critical for these applications. We've seen many customers see that they can reduce the latency and jitter by about 50% of time. And also, we have better switch that our switch can handle 10 to 15 times more microburst has a microburst resiliency when compared to our competitors. Another interesting thing is that we have some broadcast customers who actually run their application as microservices through Docker container on our switch because they don't foresee a need to have a separate physical server that's very expensive and that occupies space and OpEx. So they could actually port lightweight containers and run them directly on our switch. So when I talk about silicon being important, Mellanox doing, this is on the right side, you can see that our competitors with silicon is Broadcom. And pretty much all the switch that you can see today, Arista or, EdgeCore, or even some of the Cisco switches, Juniper switch, they actually are based on Broadcom-based silicon. And why I'm saying this is because when you talk to them, they would almost always never talk about performance, but rather about features. The reason is because of the table on the left side. Broadcom silicon has apparently been having some huge problems. And they make claims, for example, that per port, the latency is about 400 nanoseconds. But in reality, the industry has seen 8 microseconds. And our switch is 26 times faster than that. And it's not just me who's talking. I have many links over here on what industry is talking about, the issues with the Broadcom-based silicon. And in some cases, they actually even say how Mellanox Spectrum is actually answering some of the issues that this Broadcom silicon is having. So I highly encourage you folks to go look at these links. This is something that industry is talking about, and it comes from really highly reputed articles and blog pages. So obviously, performance is one important aspect, but another important aspect is price. And because we make our own silicon, we are being very, very competitive on price. And here is the 4 switches that I saw, a street price from Google Shopping Express. And this is with 1040, but it's same. It applies the same for 100 gig switch as well. Again, this is based on a Spectrum. And if you look at the cost alone, ours is by far the cheapest switch in the industry. Another one, the only other that's close to it is the edge core, but that is without any operating system. So it's just bare box, bare switch without any OS or any support. We, on the other hand, provide the consumer grade support, and we occupy, because of the way we've designed our switch. I'll talk about this in the next slide. But because of the way we designed our switch, we take about 4 times lower cables and breakout cables. So to summarize it, you can use the same connectors, same infrastructure, but we offer better cost, highest performance, and the best support. So one of the things that we've actually 2100, that's the product number. And the Spectrum's 2100 is something very, very interesting and unique in the industry. If I actually show you that over here, this is 1U switch, but it takes half width. And this is perfect for storage applications. The reason is because if you have storage servers, each of them are about 4U boxes, so you would not have more than 8 or 12 servers per rack. So you don't need a 32-port switch at all. And if you ask our competitors, obviously these switch vendors are not going to sell you by number of ports that is being used, but rather by switch. So by using 2 of half-width switch next to each other, you get high availability, you get highest port density, you also reduce the power, but you also reduce your space because you don't need 2U. So in a partial rack, from price takeaway standpoint, in a partial rack, if you're building, let's say, a couple of storage server boxes, our switch is 3.6 times more cost competitive than Arista switch out there. And not just that, we add about 50% of the budget on top of the storage. In case of Arista, that's twice the number. Now, if you scale that up to a single rack with a high availability, we are again more than twice cost competitive than Arista. And not just that, our 100 gig switch essentially offers 25% more bandwidth than our competitors. And if you scale this out further to multi-rack solution, you can see that this cost increase, the cost competitiveness increases. And why is it important is 2 things. One is that reducing the OpEx helps your customer reduce their power savings. I mean, increase their power savings and reduce their rack space. And as a channel partner, you could actually earn more dollar per sale because you can have higher gross margin. So because of these unique capabilities, we have in Scale Logic and Mellanox have been able to power multiple post-production studios. I have some of them over here, some of them are ours, some of them are there, some of them are joint customers. But these are really, there are many people who are actually deploying this in the production environment. And here are some of the success stories that we always talk about. BBC is actually building their entire broadcasting, beyond post-production studios. We are popular in broadcasting as well as content delivery. So BBC, for example, is actually deploying our network, end-to-end network, 100 gig in their broadcasting environment. Netflix, to their end, they are actually building their own CDN box, and that is using our ConnectX port adapter. It's the same adapter that goes in the Genesis Unlimited box. And the reason so is not just pure bandwidth, but with our network, they were able to push 100,000 subscribers from one single CDN box. So if you take a city of about 1 million people, they don't need more than 10 or 15 boxes. And that is very, very important to them. So we've also have done a proven success story in live broadcast video editing, or offline broadcast video editing, or even, helping OEMs design multi-viewer and signal analytics. So with that, I turn this back to Jeff, where he'll talk about some of the unique capabilities that Scale Logic has.
Well, thank you. Again, I just want to very quickly kind of go over our some of our product line, starting with our Genesis Unlimited and now our Genesis Unlimited Hybrid. Now, what the hybrid will allow us to do is to have a tiered storage device in one chassis. So we'll have fast SSD tier for high bandwidth, high bit rate clients doing 4K, along with a tier of spinning disk to use for lower bit rate clients doing HD projects or using proxy files. We're able to use the data placement rules in our HyperFS file system to point different clients to the SSD disks or the spinning disk, depending upon what they need to work with. And this is all done as a folder within the same global file system. Our current hybrid files, our current hybrid systems are being used for up to 4 streams of uncompressed 4K DPX for very high-end workflows, while still allowing the lower bitrate workflows from the spinning disks. And of course the stream counts on that, depends on the codecs being used. Then we move down to our Hyper MDC, which is our high performance Scale-Out NAS. This is our failover MDC, which we can also put in our Scale-Out NAS that allows the LAN clients to be able to talk to the storage in the same manner as the direct connect clients. Our new Genesis ZX product, great for disaster recovery and data protection, software defined storage for small, medium, and large work groups, snapshots, built-in replications, and of course, I'm sure you all are familiar with our Genesis NX NAS storage and file server, which is, very well known for being a mission critical and reliable second tier storage with built-in replication. One of the great things about us having multiple products is that we can assist our customers in a consultative manner. It's not we have one product, here you go. We can actually work with our customers, help them when they define their needs, help to define a solution for them. And we will be showing our Genesis Unlimited Hybrid at IBC, and look forward to seeing you all there. And thank you, Ramnan.
Thanks, Jeff. So with that, we open up to any questions that you folks might have. Okay. So
if anyone has any, I'm sorry, I just want to say, if anyone has any specific questions about our Scale Logic products, please feel free to email me or to go to our Scale Logic website.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. So if any of you folks have any questions or follow-ups that you might have for our Mellanox product, I have my email address. We have both of our email address in the first slide. So please feel free to reach out to us. And as Jeff said, we'll also be there at Scale Logic, just waving hands to our friends. So, if you folks want to catch up, we'll be more than happy to do that at IBC. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks, guys.